We would like to take the opportunity to thank you for having been here for a start, for having been online, and for having been so patient over the course of the past 2 days. We would like to do a really quick, real wrap-up, if possible, by any means, as we discussed so many perspectives and topics of a potential humanitarian turning point. And we often leave these events and wonder, so what has been the takeaway, what might have been the outcome, what shall I report to headquarters, why I spent these 2 days in fancy Berlin. So in the past 2 days, we had a series of sessions, and what we would like to do is very quickly, if possible, to have all facilitators of these sessions on the stage and with a quick elevator pitch to name what have been their 1 or 2 key takeaways of that. You as the audience will have a big say in this as well, by the way, and you would do us a great favor if you could engage in this. We will share in the chat right now, but as well by email in evaluation form. It's been our first annual conference, as we only noticed, or at least myself, 2 days ago, the first annual conference in presence, because we always had to do it online at the end of the day. So it would be great, and you would be of great help giving us your feedback on that one. On our own side, maybe quickly sharing a few points on this potential humanitarian turning point, or Zeitenwende, or Ukraine crisis accelerator, which is a great framing, by the way, I believe as well. Quickly sharing maybe 1 or 2 thoughts on yesterday. The part I kicked off myself. I mean, there was the kickoff about the European potential humanitarian turning point, and the debate about the new era. From my view, I don't know how you've heard it, there was quite an agreement that we have a big debate about a new era on many ways, but it's failing actually to target dimensions of a broader awakening, of a humanitarian turning point, of human security, as might be very well needed. There was big agreement that the reform push is needed on, for example, much more locally led humanitarian action, also in the light of what we heard from Ukraine crisis about humanitarian coordination, about better and higher funding patterns. However, listening to the donor representatives we had here and who kindly joined us, especially from Brussels and Berlin, I'm not so sure if there has been necessarily an agreement in which dimensions more reform dynamic is needed, and to which speed, for example, for Germany, from moving from a payer to a player. And less so also agreement, I believe, in which dimensions in financial terms an awakening might be needed. For example, looking at the praisable record budgets, both from ECHO in Brussels and Germany, but at the same time looking into the question if this is sufficient in light of the means invested in other security-related dimensions of a Zeitenwende and in the challenges upcoming on the humanitarian side. So from my view, there has been in this debate some open questions still to tackle. Same in the panel 3, I facilitated on the coordination side, which tackled on the policy side what might hold us from moving faster. I think there has been an agreement that this is not a technical issue, but it's crucial for policy and reform, for policy push and reform, and agreement that there is a need to substantially step up in this front. But from my view, it has been more an open question how to address that power dynamics are here coming into play on the donor side, but also for UN agencies and for INGOs. And a more open question by which change of incentives these respective tensions could be handled between organizational objectives and common goods and common objectives for reform and for this humanitarian awakening. So I would leave it from my side with that, but we touched also in the panel, Sonja facilitated on the same day, for example, then on the question of a humanitarian awakening in Germany, and you will need a mic to share with us what have been your 2, 3, whatever takeaways.
Yes, thanks.
Can we switch on the mic, if possible? Sorry for surprising you.
I think it's working now, is it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so one takeaway is to not get frustrated as humanitarians, to tell our tale about principles and values again and again, to avoid politicization, and that the Sahel is exactly the context that points at the inconsistencies and different understandings of the concept of stabilization and the lack of coherence that we see. I also brought one key takeaway from a participant from my panel from the pin board, and I must say you were rather shy to share your key takeaways. But I like this one, which says dialogue remains important even as complexity and delivery of humanitarian services grows. So yeah, I think that's a great takeaway to keep speaking. Thank you.
Thanks, Sonja. Stay with us, please, because we will have a big photo and blah, blah, blah in a minute. So, Darina, please join us. You facilitated this morning the session on locally led humanitarian action. And what would you say have been the key takeaways of that one?
Yes, thank you. Well, the main question of my panel has actually been whether the humanitarian response in Ukraine can be considered as a turning point for locally led humanitarian action. And well, we sort of agreed that there is actually two sides of the story. So for one, we are seeing some progress, for example, in the sense that some international organizations are not actively implementing their own projects on the ground and are reconsidering their default modes of operating. But secondly, the other side of the story is that this still comes with a variety of challenges. And just to name three of them, the first one is that even though a lot of INGOs are applying leaner processes, local actors are facing huge diversity of different due diligence processes from a large variety of international actors, UN and donors. But I'm also hopeful here that this can be fixed with more coordination. I think that's a chance for European donors and European international organizations actually to change something here. And second challenge is, with local actors being the ones present on the ground, this also comes with the risk of risk transfer to them and exploiting their presence for visibility. And the last challenge is, that there is still a focus on capacity strengthening of local actors to make them fit into international rules and regulations a lot, and less of a focus on strengthening international actors' capacity in plugging into local responses. So all in all, I think there is at least some progress, but it's very slow, and it needs to speed up to actually hold pace with the needs that we see on the ground.
Thank you so much, Darina. That elevator went all the way up. Andrea, you're one on the climate change session right
Thank
after.
you so much. I have distilled 6 words, and I'm trying to pass them over in a brief manner. So my first keyword is time. When talking about climate change and humanitarian response, time is crucial in the time frames from pledges to action, as we have heard, but also in operational readiness, and beyond that, in the time frames of planning that go beyond what we know as the humanitarian cycle to be, because climate change is going to be a deal breaker of our understanding of humanitarian time. The second word is urgency. We have heard this a lot today. The science is clear, but we need to be better in conveying this sense of urgency. Also better in communicating it to ourselves, because I need to understand climate science better. We need to understand climate science better. We need to communicate it to affected regions and affected populations, and to also those who are not as affected but have the money to do something about it. That includes donors and includes also this call for more advocacy and for more political leverage vis-a-vis those who have the money and the means to decide on things. The third word is evidence. Gigma has made this very clear. We need more evidence to also evaluate the assumptions that our actions are based upon for so long. So we need evidence to face that, and also to face what Paul has called uncertainty, because with a lot of things we don't really know exactly how it's going to play out. So we need more evidence on that. Fifth one is multi-sectoral response. Ahmad has made this very great point of there is no single solution. Only our idea of localization cannot be the single solution. So, but we need to rally up all the sectors, rally up all the actors that are there to face this massive challenges that climate change is. And last but not least, Sonja has already mentioned it, frustration. And I cannot stress this enough, and I will stress it again. We cannot allow ourselves to be frustrated by the dire situation, but we have to act for ourselves and for everyone.
Thank you, Andrea. Goda, a spotlight on your spotlight on gender and...
Thank you, Ralf. I'll be very quick, as we just had the session, so I suppose you have watched it. So we discussed how gender transformation should be part of the humanitarian transformation in order to secure equal access for everyone and to have truly inclusive, locally led humanitarian action too. Gender work is not a box to be ticked. It's also not just about women. And it is about changing unequal gender norms. And in every context, there are organizations, local organizations, doing just that.
Thank you, Goda. And the most difficult task for Andrea, who has to wrap up the session, just concluded.
The easiest.
But you have the...
No, because I think, well, the advantage of being the last session, I think it's the freshest in mine, hopefully. But maybe I think the most, at least from my side, the takeaways were it's the Ukraine crisis, it's not a game changer, it's an accelerator, because we have already grappling with all the challenges before. We have to stick to our values. We have to invest in moderation of online communication, process data for humanitarian purposes, and because it's also a multi-stakeholder approach, I was thinking, I don't know if Paul is still around, to join the climate Christmas tree, because he said we need a new Christmas tree. So I would suggest maybe if we have a Christmas tree, which is a new one, we will have a physical one and a virtual one, because we all have both lives nowadays in a physical and a virtual world, and hopefully decorate it with the people or all the stakeholders who actually are being part of this Christmas tree and probably admiring this Christmas tree, so have an active role in decorating this Christmas tree. And since we are approaching Christmas as well, I thought it might be a good closure, but over to you, Ralf.
Thank you so much, Andrea. Talking of Christmas gives the good opportunity to say, in the first place, please give a big hand for the team and for facilitating all these sessions in the past days. Having said that, we can only shine because there is a bigger team in the background, and I'd like to ask the whole team now to come up stage, because they definitely deserve a big hand as well, and a big thank you. And you can even hear pass through, like now, with Micha, Anne, Berit, Johanna. Einmal hier. So, thank you so much. Yeah, don't fall inside after all. The real masterminds, there have been 2 real masterminds on this conference, and you won't know yet. There has been Anne, our head of communications, who's been the mastermind of everything happening here in the location, the logistics and the communication. Thank you so much. And the other one is right next to me, Berit, who's been coordinating everything and has been really the mastermind, because we kept forgetting everything past weeks, but Berit came with an email every other day. Thank you so much. So, and if I might share the flower with the rest of the team, thank you for all your work, all the overtime, and don't drop the flowers in the last minute. So I hope, yeah. So thank you so much. Thank you for Robert and his team for streamlining in such a professional way. A big thank you to BUM, which have been great hosts here, and a big thank you to Handicap International, who allowed us to make this the most accessible conference we ever did, and a big thank you to the Foreign Office. Our project we run on behalf of European policies has co-funded this conference, so that's thank you, well deserved as well. Thank you so much for coming. Some of you have been all the way through both days. You get the gold medal right now and a glass of champagne if you wish. And thanks for being online so many hours. Next conference will be in summer, I promise, and then we get together out there and have a real party. See you then. Have a good day, good afternoon, and many thanks for joining.